And then he came to the gist of his argument. He told the assembled men of Athens that by condemning him, they would be in fact sinning against themselves. For if you kill me, said he, you will not easily find another like me, who, if I may use such a ludicrous figure of speech, is a sort of gadfly, a stinging bee, given to the state by the god. And the state is like a great and noble steed, who is tardy in its motions, owing to its very size, and requires to be stirred into life. I am that godfly, which God has given the state, and all day long, and in all places, I'm always fastening upon you, arousing and persuading and reproaching you. But all this eloquence, this appeal to the virtues of reflexivity, was to no avail. He was condemned. Accepting his fate, he nevertheless concluded on the following note. And now, O men who have condemned me, I prophesy to you who are my murderers, that immediately after my death, punishment far heavier than you have inflicted on me will surely await you. Me, you have killed because you wanted to escape the accuser and not to give an account of your lives. But that will not be as you suppose, far otherwise. For if you think that by killing men, you can avoid the accuser censuring your lives, you are mistaken. That is not a way of escape, which is either possible or honorable. The easiest and noblest way is not to be crushing others, but to be improving yourselves. Now, what does all this have to do with federalism? A lot, in fact, if, as I believe, federalism can be understood as a conceptual institutionalization of reflexivity, as an intellectual posture that makes it mandatory to think problems with a critical eye towards both ourselves and others. A true federal spirit requires that we be gadflies, stinging bees, always on the lookout for totalizing approaches. Approaches whose conceptual coherence requires that one aspect of reality be obliterated. Sovereignty, nationalism, cultural authenticity, rights, as all or nothing concepts, are unable to explain the complexity of the relationships between Aboriginal peoples and Euro-Canadians. All these concepts call for reality to be jammed into one single pigeonhole. Instead of emphasizing the particular nature of the relationships between individuals, between groups, and between individuals and groups, these concepts seek to identify a quintessential substance, the existence of a state where sovereignty is concerned, of a Volksgeist, for spirit of the people, where nationalism is appealed to, a cultural essence, where authenticity is invoked, and finally, the definition of what distinguishes so radically a person that it deserves to be elevated to the level of a right. These totalizing approaches are not confined to the normative field. Some argue, for instance, that cognition itself is culturally programmed. Not only are we blind to what is alien to our culture, but our minds operate as prisons. For to escape and embrace another means of apprehending the world is to betray our authentic selves. We need to accept, for instance, I think, that nurturing many allegiances is not a symptom of false consciousness. From a federal perspective, duality and even ambivalence is not a pathology. At the same time, one must recognize that individuals do sometimes feel a stronger attachment to one particular political community or social group. Federalism is not only an attempt at acknowledging the existence of these social groups to which the citizens' multiple attachments are engrafted. It also aims at structuring relationships so that these individuals and groups can coexist peacefully together. Unlike the concept of sovereignty, nation, cultural authenticity, and rights, federalism makes compromise, concessions, and even renunciation plausible, possible, and honorable. And where Aboriginal peoples are concerned, I believe that the specificity of their situation lies not so much in their cultural difference, but in the particular nature of the relationships they developed first with Great Britain and then with Canada. They should be considered constitutional actors because whether before or after the advent of the Indian Acts, they have always been envisaged as political communities and not simply as aggregations of individuals. On the other hand, it would be closing our eyes to reality not to admit that the lives of Aboriginals are closely articulated to that of Euro-Canadians. Finally, envisaging solutions that emphasize the particular nature of our relationships with one another enables us to avoid falling into the trap of cultural essentialism. My second story is much shorter. It is about another warrior, one that fought bravely and won, but whose voyage home proved to be an ordeal, or more to the point, an odyssey. His story was told and transmitted orally for centuries before being written down nearly 2,800 years ago. Ulysses would be the last warrior to come home. 10 long years it took him. 10 long years, during which he had to face many dangers. Near the end of his journey, he was held captive by Calypso, a magnificent goddess, who, try as she may, was unable to make him forget his wife and home. She offered him her love, her beauty, and the greatest gift of all, immortality. "Goddess," replied Ulysses, "do not be angry with me about this. I am quite aware that my wife Penelope is nothing like so tall or so beautiful as yourself. She is only a woman, whereas you are immortal. Nevertheless, I want to get home and can think of nothing else. If some god wrecks me when I am on the sea, I will bear it and make the best of it. I have had infinite trouble, both by land and sea already, so let this go with the rest." In other words, Ulysses chose the frailty of humanity over the perfection of the gods. He chose the world he knew, embracing both its miseries and its splendors. Federalism, according to me, requires that we accept the world, at least in part, as it is. We must fashion concepts that agree with reality and avoid ordering reality to fit our concepts. In conclusion, paraphrasing Socrates, the virtue of federalism, it seems to me, is that it forces us to give a true account of our lives.